Christina, thank you very much for agreeing to talk. It's a big pleasure to see you and to hear you. Yesterday, President Biden signed into law a funding measure that will provide a record $13.6 billion in emergency aid to Ukraine and its European allies. How much will Ukraine get, and if you know, and would it be a direct financial aid or maybe in some form of weapons, humanitarian aid, or something else?
Right. So there's a lot of different baskets of money for the 13.6 billion, but I can highlight a couple that I think are particularly relevant directly for Ukraine. That is that $4 billion of the total is going for humanitarian assistance, most of which will go to Ukraine, although some of it might go to areas where Ukrainian refugees are also living. Then there is $3 billion for defensive equipment. That will continue our ability to flow defensive weapons to Ukraine to defend itself against Russia. So we also have 1.8 billion of that is going to macroeconomic assistance. That is to help Ukraine's economy stay strong and afloat. And so those are just a few of the pieces of the entire whole that are going directly to Ukraine and to support Ukraine's fight against Russian aggression.
I see. Could you please clarify why does President Biden personally oppose the transfer of Polish jets to Ukraine?
I think I would say that President Biden and the U.S. administration recognize that Ukraine does need the ability to fight Russian air force. And what we're trying to do is provide Ukraine what we can get there most quickly and which has been most effective so far. So I think you've seen that Ukraine has been very effective in countering Russian planes, helicopters, and also tanks. And that has been achieved by the Ukrainian military's very skilled application, but also by the weapons that we've been able to provide, including javelins, stingers, and other anti-aircraft weapons. So we'll continue to do that, and we think that Ukraine will be able to use those weapons and perhaps others that other countries are providing to continue to strongly counteract Russian air power.
I see, but still, why not jets? Because what is the fundamental difference between transferring anti-aircraft defense systems from the West and those Polish planes, for example?
I'm not going to step into the purview of our Department of Defense, other than to say that looking at the whole picture, I think that the view was that the more mobile pieces of air defense that we have provided so far and continue to provide have been extremely effective, and we want to continue to provide those.
I see. Okay. You probably know that Ukraine is in dire need of additional air defense equipment, and Russia is shelling our peaceful cities, and number of civilian casualties is incredibly high. Yesterday, President Zelensky said that we use the equipment which NATO gives us for a week, just in 20 hours. So do you think that the United States are doing everything possible to provide Ukraine with weapons?
I would say we are doing everything that we can possibly do and doing it as quickly as possible. That being said, of course, I know Ukraine is fighting incredibly hard and is using a lot of what we're providing. That's why we have a new tranche of funds that are even higher than before, which will allow us to provide even more to Ukraine and hopefully meet those needs as they arise.
And when will this tranche arrive? Maybe you know.
Well, already things are flowing in every day, so I don't want to make it seem that somehow nothing is happening right now. We continue to provide this, but we will, of course, seek to continue it and increase it to the level that we can. And not just us, I might add. It's not just the United States, but it's also our allies and partners are also providing Ukraine with the tools, equipment, weapons, material that they need to fight. Some of these are countries that have never provided weaponry to a third country before. So I think that the good news is that all of the Western allies are really focused on helping Ukraine get what it needs to fight Russian aggression. And we're, of course, a part of that, but not the only part.
I see. Okay, and concerning closing the sky over Ukraine, America refused to do it because you believe that it could inflict the Third World War. However, don't you think that if Putin decides to bomb Western Europe or another part of the world, he won't need any special pretext for that?
The reason that we do not want to do a no-fly zone is because it will put Russian military in direct conflict with US or NATO military. Once that happens, the situation will significantly escalate. And a significantly escalated situation is not going to be better for Ukraine because Ukraine will be in the middle. And so, unfortunately, oftentimes the country in the middle is the country that gets the most negative effect. And then it will extend to other countries in Europe and broaden the war. What we're trying to do is de-escalate the war. And so by providing Ukraine the defensive military equipment that it needs, we're hoping that Ukraine can hold off Russia and the war. Ultimately, Russia will make the calculation that it has made a grave error in trying to go into Ukraine and will stop its aggression, and we can de-escalate the situation.
I see. We hope for that. And according to the data you possess, how far can the Russian dictator go? What are his immediate plans? How will he act in the nearest time? Maybe you have some information on that.
I don't have any special information to provide to you other than to say that clearly President Putin has gone beyond any definition of acceptable behavior. He has targeted civilians. He has hit hospitals. He has hit apartment buildings. He is hit press that are trying to report on what's going on. We know that Ukraine is documenting all of these actions by President Putin and his forces, and we will help Ukraine to make sure that President Putin is brought to justice for what he's doing.
Oh, by the way, yesterday the Senate has called Putin a war criminal. How will this affect Putin, besides his reputation, which is already ruined? How it can help justice, to your opinion?
Well, I think there's two elements of this. First of all, President Putin has basically made himself into a global pariah. He is now in the company of Syria, North Korea, and Iran, countries that are basically global pariahs, that cannot trade normally with countries, that cannot travel to other countries. And unfortunately, he's dragging his people down with him. So first of all, because of the sanctions that not just the United States, but most of the Western world have imposed on Russia and President Putin, he now finds himself in this global pariah status, which will take, frankly, decades for Russia and the Russian economy to recover from. The second thing, though, is that President Putin has done things which I think he will be brought to justice for in the future, because they are against many of the conventions that Russia itself has signed up to. So Russia is breaking its own commitments on things like the use of cluster bombs or the targeting of civilians or the targeting of a nuclear power station. I mean, all of these things are breaking the agreements that President Putin himself and Russia have signed. And so he is being brought to account now economically, and he will be brought to account in the future for the crimes he commits in Ukraine today.
Mhm. Okay, America shares its intelligence quite generously with Ukraine and the world, so maybe you have some information on what military resources are being depleted in Russia and what kind of weapons does Russia still have in sufficient quantities?
I'm afraid I don't have any information on that to share with you, other than to say that I guess I would flip it on its head and say that Ukraine has been extremely effective in using the defensive weapons it has to help neutralize Russia's armory. And I think we've all seen the pictures of the tanks, the planes, the helicopters that Ukraine has successfully neutralized, shall we say, in the Russian stocks. Clearly, this war is not going as Russia had planned. You know, Russia suggested that they could take all of Ukraine in 10 days, and yet here we are well past that, and Russia has not successfully taken a large city, and even the cities that it has surrounded are fighting incredibly hard and keeping Russia at bay. So I think that Russia significantly underestimated Ukrainian skill, Ukrainian patriotism, and willingness from all levels of society to fight against Russian aggression, including the cities in the east, by the way. I think Russia thought that somehow Kharkiv, for instance, would just, accept them and throw flowers in their wake. And Kharkiv is fighting as hard as any other city. I mean, I think that President Putin, unfortunately, did not have good information because it is not going the way that he planned.
Yes, I see. And are the United States, as a signatory to the Budapest Memorandum, going to sit at the negotiating table with Ukraine and Russia in order to achieve peace? What is being done right now, and when could such negotiations take place?
Well, it's Ukraine's prerogative and Ukraine's decision to engage in negotiations with Russia in a way that it feels comfortable. Of course, we want to be supportive of Ukraine, but on the other hand, we are not going to try to influence or force Ukraine to make any concessions to Russia. It's really up to the Ukrainian government. If we're asked, we will certainly consider providing any help or assistance or support in negotiations to Ukraine, but it's really up to the Ukrainian government. We do not want to take the lead on this. It is in Ukraine's hand.
I see, I understand. And could you please tell us where is the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine situated now? Is it in Poland?
We're right over the border in Poland. We are doing everything we can to help from here. We actually are very busy. We're doing a lot. And part of what we're doing here is making sure that assistance flows into Ukraine, and also that the Ukrainian refugees that are coming out of Ukraine are assisted here in Poland.
Thank you very much for your help. And are you going to maybe move the embassy on to some Western European country, or you will stay in Poland?
For now, we want to be here. We want to be as close to Ukraine as possible. So we are staying in our little town near the Ukrainian border. And what we very much hope is that we'll be able to go back to our embassy in Kyiv soon and not have to go to some third country. So we're right now our thoughts are only about helping Ukraine every day. And our hopes are that we can go straight back to our embassy in Kyiv as soon as possible.
I see. And the last question concerning this point, what is your prognosis? When will the war end?
I hope it will end as soon as possible, and the way that I hope it ends is by Ukraine being able to keep all of its territory, including Donbass and Crimea, and to work out a way that going forward stability can be maintained, and that Ukraine can live in peace within its internationally accepted borders.
I see. Let's hope for that. Thank you very much, Christina, for your time, for your interview. It was very, very interesting to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you. It was really nice to talk to you too.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.